More than a few changes in the Toronto Blue Jays since we last hooked up with our pal Buck Martinez, but he is with us from Houston today. Well, are you intrigued by what the Blue Jays have done? They didn't get top tier guys, though they said they were trying, but they got some pretty good players.
Yeah, they did. And you know what? I'm not ready to put a grade on their off season until opening day. I think there are so many things that happen between now and then that everybody gets wrapped up in the winter meetings, and if the team doesn't have a successful trip to the winter meetings, they feel like it's a bad off season. But there's so much left in the off season. I think there's a lot of questions ahead for the Blue Jays, and not might be the most important question is what are they going to do with Bo and Vladdy? As are they going to sign them for the long haul? As you know, they're both getting middle of their 6 years right now, and you know what? If you wait too long, they're going to be too close to free agency to sign. So this is a very important offseason for the Blue Jays, not only what they've done so far, but what they're going to do before spring training.
Are you shocked by the size of the contracts that are being given out?
I'm disappointed I wasn't born 40 years later.
Well, I hear that. Yeah.
I am
But
not.
they should be thanking you guys. They should be thanking you guys for all that. That's what they should be doing.
Unfortunately, not many people take time to think about that, but that's another day for another story. But you know what? It just reflects what kind of financial situation the industry's in. Because obviously, and people are going to say, well, how in the world is Trey Turner worth 300 and whatever million and Judge and all that? If they weren't worth it, they wouldn't pay him. And that's exactly what you have to think about because that shows you how much money's in the game and how important these guys are to these teams. Philadelphia goes to the postseason, plays in the World Series, and says we need to add something to our team, and they had maybe the best player in the game today in Trey Turner.
Well, there's truth in that. Let's talk a little bit about what the Blue Jays did. One of the first deals that was consummated was the Kiermaier deal. He's a guy that we've seen a lot over the past few years. He's a guy who's played well against the Blue Jays. He was in his prime a very good defensive center fielder. He's not in his prime anymore. Let's be honest about it.
Right.
But is he good enough to play 100 games in center field?
Boy, it's funny you mentioned that. 100 games is exactly what I'm thinking about too. I think 100 games. If he is Kevin Kiermaier for 100 games, the Blue Jays will have a very good player. You know, he had hip surgery last year. And it's a surgery that we never heard about in my playing days, hip labrum surgery. And because of the diagnostics now, they've improved so much that they can detect what's wrong with his hip. And speed is his game. There's no question about it. And, last year in the middle of the season, he just couldn't play anymore. So he had that hip repaired. And I'm a little surprised, and I don't know what his options were, but I'm a little surprised he chose to sign with the Blue Jays and play on turf again. Because Tampa Bay's got turf, and now Toronto, of course. But terrific player, three-time Gold Glover, Platinum Glove Award winner. He beat the Blue Jays I don't know how many times with his speed, whether it was a bunt or scoring from first on an extra base hit or robbing an extra base hit from the Blue Jays bat. I like the sign. He's a character guy, first-class guy, gives you everything he has every single day. And he will be a good addition to this team, no matter how many games he plays.
I tell you what, when they signed him, the first thing that came to mind for me was he's a Tampa Bay Ray. And the Tampa Bay Rays have created this magic elixir of how to win somehow, some way. Is there something of institutional knowledge? Is there something that as a Tampa Bay Ray, Kevin Kiermaier can bring to the Jays and help?
Oh, no question. John, that's a great answer. Great question, because you remember what last year he had a sliding play at home plate and he picked up the scatter report that Kirk dropped at home plate, and that became a very controversial play. But he's all about winning. And you'll remember that he made his debut, I believe he made his debut in the postseason before he ever played a day in the regular season as a defensive replacement for Joe Madden. So he is that good, and he's kind of like Kevin Pillar in that regard, a very late round draft pick, not expected to be much of a major league player, signed probably strictly on his speed. And the thought was, hey, at least he'll be a good filler in the minor leagues. And here he's had a great career in the major leagues. So, yeah, and he's been to the World Series. He knows what that's all about. And you know what? The Blue Jays, they don't have many players that have been to the World Series outside of Springer. And now they add another guy that understands what it takes. I think the Blue Jays, the way their season ended, that can really serve as a valuable lesson. They were up, 8-1 in that game on Saturday against Seattle and lost. Mm-hmm. And you can't take anything for granted in the postseason. And as we saw, the teams got better and better naturally as we got closer and closer to the World Series. And I think Blue Jays players, they should recognize they've got some work to do yet.
Do you think the Blue Jays need another outfielder? Do they need someone to play right field? Do they have to replace Hernandez's bat?
No, Springer's going to play right field most of the time, I think.
So do I.
Yeah, I think Kiermaier will slide into center and Springer will play right. And, that's probably a good move for George and a good move for the club for a couple of reasons. When George was in his prime in Houston, Jake Marisnick used to come in and play center field late in games, and George would slide over to right field. And it'll keep him on the field, I think. Center field, you have bigger responsibilities, a lot more ground to cover. He dives, he runs into walls, and because of that, he hasn't been able to stay on the field on a regular everyday basis. So I think it'll serve him well to move to right. They probably need another outfielder, and they probably will go out and add another outfielder before it's all said and done, because I don't think the Blue Jays have done a very good job of developing outfield talent. They're probably the homegrown outfielder that I can think of, the last developed one was Vernon Wells, and it's been a while since he came up from the minors.
Well, Gurriel was sort of their development.
Basically, though.
Sorry?
He was an infielder.
Wasn't he a shortstop?
He's a shortstop, moved to second base, got the yips at second, and moved to left field.
Yeah.
So
don't say yip. Do not say yips around two golfers, please. Do not say yips.
Let's talk about
what about Bassett?
Yeah,
I love Chris Bassett. I think when you look at his last 3 years, he's got an ERA in the low threes. He's durable. Now, here's a guy that took a shot off the head, a line drive when he was pitching in Oakland, and came back that same year and pitched. And I think he's another grown-up. He's another Gosman guy in the rotation. Doesn't seek a lot of attention, just wants to go out and get the ball every fifth day and perform. So if he slots into the third or fourth spot in the rotation, I think you've got a very formidable rotation. And I like the fact that we're seeing some upper echelon free agents, not top tier, I'm not going to say that, but upper echelon free agents recognize how good Toronto is. I think Kevin Kiermaier recognizes how good they are. And now Bassett, obviously, with his commitment to the next 3 years, this is a good team, and this has got a lot of potential. And we all know what a great place it is to play when the Blue Jays are good. And I think the word is spread now.